Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm an American lay student of Ajahn Suchat, or Pra Ajahn Suchat Abhijato, who has given me the very special honor of being asked by him to record this book for you. This book was written by Pra Ajahn Suchat's own teacher, the Venerable Acariya Maha Boowa Nanasampanno, and is a spiritual biography written by him about his teacher, the Venerable Acariya Mun Buddhadatta Thera. The title of the book is Venerable Acariya Mun Buddhadatta Thera, a spiritual biography by Acariya Mahabhuwa Nanasampanno, and it was published in 2005, translated into English by Bhikkhu Dick Silaratano. If you would like to learn how to download or get a hard copy of this book, or a list of which pages or chapters are read on each separate recording, please listen to the beginning of the first recording of this book. This book, in any form, is to be given away for free. Any ads you may see or hear in this recording have been put there by the platform you are using to listen or view with, for its own revenue, in exchange for letting us use their platform for free. Please forgive me for any mispronunciations of names, places, or words, as I'm still learning how to pronounce Thai and Pali, and for any background noises, as I'm just making these recordings in my apartment with an unruly dog and in the middle of a city. We're resuming today on page 176. We are starting today at the beginning of the full second paragraph on page 176. We're still in chapter 3 in the subsection titled The Most Exalted Appreciation. On those occasions when the Buddhas and the Arahant disciples came to visit, only the Buddhas addressed Acariya Mun. None of the disciples accompanying them spoke a word as they sat quietly composed, listening in a manner worthy of the highest respect. Even the small novices, looking more adorable than venerable, showed the same quiet composure. Some of them were quite young, between the ages of 9 and 12, and Acariya Mun found them truly endearing. Ordinarily, the average person would see only bright-eyed, adorable children. Being unaware that they were arahants, one would most probably be tempted to fool around, reaching out playfully to stroke their heads, without realizing the impertinence of doing so. When Acariya Mun spoke about this, I thought mischievously that I would probably be the first to succumb to the urge to reach out and play with them, despite the consequences. Afterwards, I could always beg their forgiveness. Acariya Mun said that although they were young novices, their behavior was very mature. They were as calm, composed, and impressive to see as all the other Arahant disciples. In short, all the Arahant monks and novices who accompanied each Buddha exhibited impeccable behavior worthy of the highest respect. They were neat, orderly, and pleasing to the eye, like immaculately folded robes. Acariya Mun had always been curious to know how walking and sitting meditation were practiced at the time of the Buddha. He also had questions about the proper etiquette to be used between junior and senior monks, and whether it was necessary for a monk to wear his formal robes while doing meditation. When such questions arose in his mind, invariably one of the Buddhas or an Arahant disciple appeared to him in samadhi and demonstrated how these practices were originally performed in the Buddha's day. For example, Acariya Mun was curious to know the correct manner of practicing walking meditation so as to show proper respect for Dhamma. A Buddha or an Arahant then appeared, demonstrating in detail how to place the hands, how to walk, and how to remain self-composed. Sometimes these demonstrations included explicit instructions. At other times, the methods were demonstrated by example. They also showed him such things as the proper way to sit in samadhi, including the most suitable direction to face, and the best seated posture to assume. Acariya Mun had some strange things to say about how junior and senior monks showed their respect for each other. Acariya Mun wanted to know how monks at the time of the Buddha conducted themselves with appropriate respect toward one another. Shortly after this thought arose, the vision of a Buddha and many Arahant disciples appeared to him. The Arahants were of all different ages. Some were young, others older, a few being so old that their hair had turned completely white. A considerable number of small novices of all ages accompanied them. However, the Buddha and his disciples did not arrive together. Each Arahant arrived individually. Those arriving first sat in the front, while those arriving later sat further away, without regard for seniority. Even those novices who arrived earlier sat ahead of the monks who arrived later. Finally, the last monk, a very elderly man, arrived to take the last available seat way in the back. But the others showed no sign of shame or embarrassment. Even the Buddha himself sat down in whichever seat was available at the time he arrived. Seeing this, Acariya Mun was somewhat incredulous. Could it be that the monks at the time of the Buddha did not respect seniority? It was definitely not an inspiring sight. How could the Buddha and his disciples proclaim the sasana and then expect people to have faith in it when the sasana's leader and his closest disciples behaved in such an indiscriminate fashion? Instantly the answer arose in his heart without the Buddha and his disciples having offered any comment. This was an instance of pure vimutti Dhamma, devoid of any trace of relative conventional reality. So there was no fixed order of propriety. They were demonstrating the true nature of absolute purity, being perfectly equal for all, irrespective of conventional designations such as young and old or high and low. From the Lord Buddha on down to the youngest Arahant novice, all were equal with respect to their state of purity. What Acariya Mun had witnessed was a conclusive indicator that all the Arahant monks and novices were equally pure. This having been made clear to him, he wondered how they differed to each other in the conventional world. No sooner had this thought arisen than the vision of the Buddha and the Arahants seated before him changed. Whereas before they had been sitting together in no special order, now the Buddha sat at the head of the assembly, while the small novices, previously in the front, sat in the last seats. It was an impressive sight, worthy of the highest respect. At that moment, Acariya Mun clearly understood that this image represented the traditional way in which monks at the time of the Buddha showed each other respect. Even Arahants who were junior in rank were obliged to respect those of their seniors who were practicing correctly but still had kilesas in their hearts. The Buddha then elaborated on this theme. The Tathagata's monks must live in mutual respect and friendship, as though they were all one single entity. This does not mean that they are friendly in a worldly way, but rather that they are friendly in the equal, unbiased way of Dhamma. When my monks live together, even in large numbers, they never quarrel or display arrogance. Monks who do not respect their fellows according to the principles of the teaching and the discipline of the Buddha are not worthy of being called the Tathagata's monks. Even though those monks may imitate the disciples of the Buddha, they are merely impostors, making false claims. As long as monks respect each other according to the principles of the teaching and the discipline, which substitute for the Buddha himself, and never violate these principles, then wherever these monks live, whenever they were ordained, whatever their race, status, or nationality, they remain true disciples of the Tathagata. and whoever is a true follower of the Tathagata must surely see the end of dukkha one day. The Buddha and all his disciples vanished instantly the moment he finished speaking. As for Acariya Mun, all his doubts had vanished the moment that vision appeared to him so clearly. Concerning Acariya Mun's doubts about the necessity of wearing the formal robes when doing meditation, one of the Arahant disciples appeared to him, demonstrating how it was unnecessary to wear them every time. He personally demonstrated when and how sitting and walking meditation should be practiced while wearing the formal robes, as well as the instances when it was unnecessary to wear them. Every aspect of a monk's robes was made clear to him, including the correct color for a monk's three principal robes. He showed Acariya Mun ochre-colored robes that were dyed from the heartwood of the jackfruit tree in three different shades: light, medium, and dark brown. Careful consideration of these episodes is enough to convince us that Acariya Mun always had sound, acknowledged precedents for the way he practiced. He never jeopardized his vocation by merely guessing about things he was unsure of. Consequently, his practice was always smooth, consistent, and irreproachable from beginning to end. Certainly, it would be hard to find his equal nowadays. Those adopting his mode of practice are bound to exhibit a gracefulness befitting disciples of such a fine teacher, and their own practice is sure to progress very smoothly. However, those who prefer to flout convention are like ghosts without a cemetery, or orphans without a family. Having forsaken their teacher, they may well modify the practice to suit their own opinions. Acariya Mun possessed a mysterious, ineffable inner compass to direct him in these matters, one which none of his disciples could ever match. I'm now skipping over several pages of some wonderful photographs, so if you have the opportunity to get your hands on the book or download a copy, I highly recommend that you do so that you can see all of these marvelous photographs. And next, we are moving on to Chapter 4, the title of which is The Chiang Mai Years, beginning on page 184. Venerable Acariya Mun wandered Dutanga in the northern province of Chiang Mai for many years, spending the annual rains retreat in a different location each year. He spent one rains retreat in each of the following places: Ban Chom Tang in the Mai Rim district, Ban Pong in the Mai Tang district, Ban Kloi in the Proi district, Ban Pu Praya in the Mai Swai district, and Mai Tong Tip in the Mai Sai district of Chiang Rai province. He also spent rains retreats at Wat Chedi Luang in the city of Chiang Mai, in the mountains of Mai Swai district, and in the neighboring province of Uttaradit. Outside of the retreat period, he wandered extensively through the provinces of Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai for a total of 11 years, making it impossible to give a strict chronological account of all the village communities he passed through on his travels. In the following account, I shall mention by name only those villages having a direct bearing on the story as it unfolds. Except for his stay at Wat Chedi Luang Monastery, Acariya Mun always wandered in solitude, staying in the wilderness, mountainous areas where danger was ever present. It is the exceptional nature of his wandering Dutanga practice and the many insights into Dhamma that arose along the way which make Acariya Mun's life story so significant. This strange and wonderful tale is unique among the stories of all the Dutanga monks who wandered alone. Ordinarily, such a lifestyle is believed to be bleak and lonely. Living in an inhospitable environment, oppressed by danger, and unable to eat or sleep normally. The sense of fear can be stifling. But Acariya Mun was perfectly content living a solitary existence. He found it conducive to his efforts to remove the kilesas from his heart, having always relied on the method of striving in seclusion to accomplish that goal. It was only later that other monks began to seek him out. For example, Acariya Tet of Tabo district in the province of Nang Khai, Acariya San and Acariya Kao of Wat Tam Klong Pen Monastery lived with him for short periods of time. After training them for a while in the way of practice, he sent them off alone to find secluded places in sparsely populated forests where villages were far apart, perhaps at the foot of a mountain, perhaps on a mountain ridge. Villages in that region were quite small, some consisting of only 4 or 5 houses, others 9 to 10 houses, just enough to support an alms round from one day to the next. The Kamatana monks who followed Acariya Mun during that period were extremely resolute, fearless individuals. They constantly showed a willingness to put their lives on the line in their search for Dhamma. Therefore, Acariya Mun preferred to send them to live in places teeming with wild animals, such as tigers, for such places tended to automatically dispel complacency and stimulate mindfulness and wisdom, boosting the strength of the citta faster than could otherwise be expected. Acariya Mun himself thrived comfortably in the peace and quiet of these virtually unpopulated mountain regions. Though human contact was scarce, communication with devas, brahmas, nagas, and other spirits from various realms of existence was normal for him, much in the same way that a person knowing foreign languages regularly communicates with people from other countries. Due to his long-standing fluency in this type of communication, his time spent living in mountainous regions was of special benefit to celestial beings. It was also beneficial to the local hill tribes, who tended to be straightforward, honest, even-tempered people. Once they came to know his character and to appreciate his Dhamma, they revered him so much that they were willing to sacrifice their lives for him. Hill tribes and forest peoples, such as the Ekor, Kamu, Musyur, and Hmong, are generally considered to be rather scruffy, unattractive, primitive people. But Acariya Mun found them to be handsome, clean-looking people who were courteous and well-behaved, always treating their elders and local leaders with great respect. They maintained a good community spirit, and there were hardly any troublemakers in their villages back then. They placed so much trust in their elders, especially the village headman, that when he spoke, everyone paid attention and obediently complied with his wishes, and they were not opinionated, making them easy to teach. Those so-called wild, uncivilized jungles were actually inhabited by good, honest, moral people. There, unlike in the jungles of human civilization, theft and robbery were virtually unknown. Jungles, consisting of trees and wild animals, aren't nearly so dangerous as the civilized jungles of human society, places teeming with all kinds of perilous kilesas, where greed, hatred, and delusion are constantly on the assault. They inflict deep internal wounds, gradually eroding a person's physical and mental health until the damage becomes acute. Such wounds are extremely difficult to treat. In any case, most people can't even be bothered to look for suitable care. Though such kilesa-inflicted wounds tend to fester menacingly, those who are afflicted usually neglect their injuries, hoping they will somehow heal by themselves. This sort of kilesa-infested jungle exists in the hearts of all human beings, men, women, monks, and novices, without distinction. Acariya Mun said that he used life in the wilds as a means of cutting back this wild inner jungle, which otherwise could be so savage and disturbing that the heart never experienced any peace and quiet. At least by living alone in the wilderness, he could quell the kilesas enough to feel comfortable and relaxed. He felt that this was the only sensible way to use our natural human intelligence, and thus not squander the good fortune inherent in human birth. Monks who sought out Acariya Mun in the wilderness tended to be especially courageous and self-sacrificing, so he trained them in ways that suited their uncompromising attitude and the harshness of their environment. Training methods that he found appropriate for himself were suitable for them as well. If necessary, they were willing to die to achieve their goal. As long as they lived, they were dedicated to the struggle for Dhamma in order to transcend the world and end the perpetual cycle of birth and suffering. I'm going to end there today. That is the bottom of page 186. We'll start tomorrow. We're now in chapter 4. At the top of page 187 in the Chiang Mai years, subsection of chapter 4. I'll see you next time with Metta. Bye-bye.